If the gospel were true, would you bow? Let's get into this. The other day I asked someone a question that has been sitting in my spirit ever since. A guy was going in hard, trying to dismantle the gospel, talking history, talking church corruption, talking hypocrisy, pulling out the usual weapons. And instead of arguing point for point, I replied with one sentence. I love this because it completely changes the dynamic. If the gospel were true, would you follow it? He never responded. And why? Because that question doesn't attack your argument. It exposes your heart. It doesn't debate evidence. It reveals allegiance. And sometimes silence says more than a paragraph ever could. 1. When the argument isn't really the argument, here's what I've learned. A lot of people don't reject Christianity because of lack of evidence. They reject it because of what it would require. Because if the gospel is true, I'm not autonomous. I'm not morally neutral. I'm not basically good. I don't get to define truth. I answer to a king. That's different. You can debate archaeology all day long. You can debate manuscripts. You can debate church history. But once you ask if it were true, would you submit? Now we're talking about surrender. And surrender is where the real resistance lies. To the hypocrisy objection, people say Christians did terrible things. The church committed atrocities. Religion caused wars. Let's be honest, evil has been done in the name of Christ. But here's what's interesting. Jesus warned us that not everyone who claims him belongs to him. In the Gospel of Matthew 7, he says, many will say, Lord, Lord, and he will declare, I never knew you. That means counterfeit faith was expected. Hypocrisy doesn't disprove Christianity. It proves Jesus told the truth about the human heart, and that includes religious hearts. The gospel doesn't teach that people are basically good and sometimes mess up. It teaches that sin runs deep, even in church buildings. So pointing to corrupted Christianity doesn't dismantle Christ. It confirms his diagnosis. 3. The resurrection is the line in the sand. Let's cut through the noise. The central claim isn't Christians behave well. The central claim is that Jesus Christ rose from the dead. If he didn't rise, we can all go home. If he did rise, everything changes. History's abuses don't erase an empty tomb. Political corruption doesn't undo eyewitness testimony. A weak church doesn't dethrone a risen king. The real battlefield isn't medieval history. It's the resurrection. And here's where the question becomes devastating. If it really happened, would you follow him? Because if the answer is no, then the issue was never evidence. It was authority. For the love of autonomy in the Gospel of John 3, Jesus says men love darkness rather than light. That's not lack of information. That's preference. We love being our own God. We love defining right and wrong. We love the illusion of control. But the gospel confronts that illusion. It says you are not sovereign. You are not self-made. You are not self-saving. You are accountable. And that is offensive to pride, which is why the question hits so hard. If it were true, would you bow? Because bowing is the thing we resist. 5. This question is not just evangelistic, it's surgical. This isn't just a tool to use on atheists. It's a mirror for believers. If Christ is risen, if he rules now, if he owns my life, then I don't get partial obedience. I don't get selective submission. I don't get to affirm him theologically and resist him practically. The question slices both ways. If it's true, will I obey? Not when it's convenient, not when it feels good, not when culture approves, but when it costs me. 6. Why he never responded. Why didn't that guy answer? Maybe because answering honestly would have exposed something. If he said yes, then he would have to examine the evidence seriously. If he said no, then he would have to admit it's not about history, it's about refusal. So silence was safer, and that's what that question does. It removes hiding places. It strips away the intellectual smokescreen. It confronts the will. Because at the end of the day, salvation is not merely about being convinced. It's about being made willing, and only God can do that. 7. So let me ask you, not the skeptic out there. You. If the gospel is true, and it is, if Christ died and rose, if he is enthroned right now, if every knee will bow, will you bow willingly now? Or wait until you're forced to later? One way or another, you will bow down to him. That's not a debate question. That's an eternal one. Let's close this message in prayer. Father, search us. Strip away our excuses. Expose where pride resists you. If there is any place in us that does not want Christ to be Lord, bring it into the light. Make us willing in the day of your power. Soften hardened hearts, open blind eyes, and cause us not merely to admire truth, but to bow to it. If Christ is risen, then he is worthy of everything. Our lives, our allegiance, our surrender. In Jesus' name, amen.